Hey everyone, welcome back to another video from my Man Talks FPL SC. In today's video, we're going through a bit of a Game Week 15 reaction and my initial thoughts going into Game Week 16 and a little bit of team selection thoughts as well, just because I know Game Week 16 there's a lot of fixture swings happening. Potentially we're looking at a bit of a shift in the template, so I thought it'd be a good kind of video to add in this week as well, just to kind of go through what my current thoughts are about the state of play at the moment in terms of the FPL players to potentially target, and also just my own current thoughts about my own team. I have made an early transfer as well, which is the earliest transfer I've made all season, so definitely stick around if you want to see what I've done. And if you enjoyed the video, really appreciate a thumbs up. Do please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, but let's get straight into it. So I'm just noting I'm recording this on Monday, so this is prior to the Arsenal Everton game, so I've still got Ramsdale to play, but it is a red arrow unfortunately again this game week, sitting currently on 44 points for game week 15, so I've gone down from around 12k to 15.9k. so hopefully Ramsdale, if he does get a clean sheet, we might be able to hold rank and maintain a grey arrow, but I'm not expecting any kind of green arrow this particular game week. I didn't really have any of the players who went big this particular game week, so again this is kind of getting into my thoughts about potentially a shift in the template. So big at the back, which has been such a common trend over the past few weeks, and definitely for myself really did help me get to a pretty decent rank up until this point in time, but we're seeing not so many good results from our big defenders so far in the past couple of game weeks, namely from Chelsea. They looked pretty leaky at the back. I think the lack of a consistent James and Chilwell combination, but more especially I think the lack of Kante and Kovacic in centre midfield is really impacting Chelsea, and just a couple of dumb mistakes that they've done in the past couple of weeks. Against United, Jorginho wasn't able to control the ball and basically let Sancho and Rashford run ahead and score a goal, and in this game we had Mendy a bit of a mix-up and gave away a penalty, so it really let West Ham back into the game. West Ham did play very well, but conceding 3 and going with your James and Alonso combination didn't really work out this particular game week. Obviously James got a yellow card as well, so big fat 0 for him, and just the 1 pointer for Alonso, obviously conceding the 3 goals, and he actually went off apparently with a bit of back pain. So that'll be something that's interesting to monitor. Another clean sheet wipeout for Manchester City. So I know a lot of people out there probably have a Cancelo and Diaz combination. No attacking returns here for Cancelo, even despite the big 3-1 win for Manchester City. It was only really Trent holding his own, obviously in that kind of pretty tight match against Wolves. He got the 3 bonus points in addition to his clean sheet. Just again, proving to be the king of the FPL defenders is Trent. But yeah, obviously we're not seeing the kind of double-digit returns of all the big defenders. And I think we are seeing a lot of the big midfielders starting to step up, get a lot more of the attacking points. And I think some people might be looking to potentially shift funds out of the defense, into midfield. That's something I'm thinking about as well for the next few game weeks. Speaking of the midfield, so Rafinha and Mbeumo, fortunately both got assists. I mean, the fact that Mbeumo got some attacking return, I was like, oh my god, yes. So in terms of the transfer that I did, I'll just recap. So I actually took out Ivan Toney for Emmanuel Dennis. Now, I was in my team selection video from last video, I mentioned I was strongly considering also doing Mbeumo to Smith Rowe, but I kind of checked myself because I know I was a little bit hot-headed, emotional at the time of that, but I kind of thought about it a little bit more, and I've realized that for game week 16 with so many big fixture swings, I think rolling the second free transfer and going into 2 for this game week probably would have been the better idea. It just so happened to turn out that Toney actually has got COVID and he's going to be out for a few game weeks, so I really lucked out in that regard, and that I don't have to make that particular move this week. I've kind of already done it in advance, and then Mbeumo got some attacking returns, so happy enough with that. In terms of the Liverpool players, we've got Mo Salah, also got that late assist, so 6 points for him. And Jota, the 2 points, but oh my god, he missed 2 massive chances. He had a really good headed opportunity, and then I think if you haven't seen the replay of the miss where he basically struck, and he could have hit anywhere in the goal, and he decides to hit Connor Cody when he was through on goal past Jose Sarr. Very frustrating, but obviously he's so highly owned, it doesn't really make too much of a difference in terms of your kind of overall ranking, but still, obviously I like points, I want to enjoy seeing points, so it was really frustrating that he didn't get any there. But in terms of the midfield, I think one of the reasons why I didn't have such a great score so far this particular game week, Manchester City midfielders definitely put their hands up for consideration for future game weeks, because we know that Manchester City have got a fantastic kind of Christmas schedule, namely Bernardo Silva scored a brace, 2 fantastic goals as well, just demonstrating the amazing form that he's in at this point in time. Phil Foden came back to the fold as well after missing quite a few games, and he looked really impressive. He only got an assist, but if you watch the highlights, I think he created around 3 or 4 big chances. He definitely could have had a mega haul if Grealish was able to finish a little bit better. So Foden got just the assist, but he definitely could have scored higher. And Gundogan as well, he got an assist, which was a pretty fortunate assist. but he also had some really good opportunities for himself to score as well. But we saw a lot of the Manchester City midfielders, and I think given their price, Phil Foden's around 8 million, Bernardo Silva's 7.3, Gundogan's around 7.3 as well. They're really fairly priced. I think given their really nice fixture schedule, we're going to see a lot of momentum into buying these Manchester City midfielders, which is really going to shake up the template. In terms of other midfielders who did really well this particular game week, we had Mason Mount as well from Chelsea, who I did have a few weeks back, and obviously I'm going to be forever thankful for his 24-point haul. He's now had 2 double-digit returns on the bounce with a goal and an assist, and his goal that he scored against West Ham was a great volley. He's also coming into the bit of a mix. There's a bit of a differential. Chelsea still have a decent couple of games coming up. I think they've got Leeds and Everton, and so if you're in the market for that kind of mid-range midfielder, Mason Mount is obviously a good option. And then we also had Jared Bowen from West Ham. I think someone I spoke a little bit about in last week's video as someone I would consider for a Rafinha replacement. He got 11 points against Chelsea, goal and an assist, and his underlying stats are really, really nice. So just off the top of my head, there was already 5 or 6 different midfielders. I'm already forgetting about Heung-min Son as well. He scored a goal and an assist against Norwich. Not so fortunate for my striker up top, Harry Kane. Again, just the 2 points. He's Mr. Consistent. He'll give you 2 points every week, but when we're paying 12.2 million, that's not what we want out of our premium striker. So that 50-50 call of going for Kane over Son has hampered me a little bit for sure, especially since Son has done really well, especially in the past couple of weeks. And so he's another midfielder as well that you could consider. Antonio up front did get the assist as well. It was a bit of a fortunate assist for Masuaku's goal, if you want to call it that. I mean, it was technically a goal, but it looked like a cross. I don't know what it was, but it went in the back of the net. Antonio headed it to him, so I'll happily take the first attacking return from Antonio in quite a while. But just jumping back to those midfielders, there was already 5 or 6 different midfielders that I spoke about there, and I'm not even talking about guys like Smith Rowe, for example. So I think midfield is going to be somewhere where I'm definitely looking to kind of maybe prioritize some of my future moves. I think you've got great value with Bowen, and if you can take your pick of the Manchester City midfielders with their great fixtures coming up, definitely going to be really, really good options, I think, moving forward. And so just taking a quick look at my bench as well for completion. So Dennis, who I did bring in for Tony, I did decide to bench him. He was, it was a Manchester City matchup, so very, very tough defense to score against. So I did sit him on the bench, and thankfully the 50-50 call was between him and Antonio, and so I'm happy enough that I played Antonio. And then you've got Livramento, who had a late clean sheet wipeout, and Josh Brownhill as well, just getting his customary 2 points. So that one free transfer I made was Tony to Dennis, and that freed up 1.5 million in the bank. What I'll get into now, though, is a bit of a discussion into my current team and what my current thoughts are moving forward for Game Week 16. So just taking a look at my team currently on the main FPL page, as you would have noticed, I have made one early transfer. It was Rafinha out to Bernardo Silva. So if you guys don't follow me on Twitter, I'll leave a link in the description below. I kind of gave some reasoning as to why I did such an early move from Rafinha to Bernardo Silva. Basically, the way it was that Bernardo was actually going to be my main transfer target this particular game week. Seeing that he did so well against Watford, he scored 2 goals from I think it was an XG of around 0.2, so he's definitely overperforming his stats. But I think as we're coming into this busy fixture schedule, he seems the most nailed on out of those Manchester City attackers. I've been listening to a couple of podcasts from the Sky Football Show, and the way that Pep talks about him in his post-match commentary, just he calls him the best player in the Premier League alongside with Salah. He considers him undroppable. Some of the comments that I've heard. So, and I think you don't even have to look into the comments. You just have to look in his kind of minutes that he's already played so far this season. Just taking a quick look at his history, you can see that he missed the first game of the season against Tottenham, and since then he hasn't played 90 minutes except in 2 games where I think he maybe had a bit of a niggling injury. But you can see there from game week 6, he's played 90 minutes every game. City do have a midweek Champions League fixture, but it's a dead rubber. They're already through in the group, so I'm hoping that he does get rested in that particular game. And just taking a look at the fixtures, and I keep talking about them, Wolves this game week is a bit of a tougher matchup. They're pretty solid defensively, but Manchester City are playing at home. But it's game week 17 to 20. I think you really want to target. You've got Leeds, Newcastle, Leicester, who are looking very poor at the back. Then you've got Brentford as well. So it's just a great kind of Christmas schedule, and I think if you're able to get in a Manchester City player who looks more nailed on, I think you can consider it expected minutes as a good stat for these Manchester City mids. That's the reason why I went early on Bernardo, and his price was rising. I wasn't necessarily priced out from taking out Rafinha, who I took out, because Rafinha's got pretty tough fixtures moving forward, even though I think he's still a good FPL asset, but I kind of want to capitalize on the better fixtures. So that's the reason why I went for Bernardo. I think the 3 main Manchester City mids that most people are going to be looking at is going to be Bernardo Silva, it's going to be Phil Foden, and also Gundogan. I don't think there's a bad reason to go for 2 of those 3. I think you could just go for 1 in terms of your team structure. If I had to pick 2, it would definitely be Bernardo Silva and Phil Foden, because I think KDB, if he comes back, I think that might have an impact on Gundogan, whereas I think Bernardo Silva and Phil Foden are a little bit more versatile. We know Phil Foden can play in the false 9 position, and he also can play out left as well. So there is potential for Phil Foden to play up top, and if so, I think he's going to be even better of a fantasy prospect. The underlying stats are also much better than Bernardo Silva's. I'll try to pop up on the screen somehow some kind of comparison stats between them, and you can see that Phil Foden's stats are pretty much better across the board in terms of Bernardo Silva. The reason I went for Bernardo though is that you can kind of tell, I think, yes, maybe the underlying stats are not there, or not as much, say, as compared to a Foden, but you can see the confidence is there, you can see the form that he's in, you can see the fact that he's basically playing every game. For me, I kind of just want to ride the bandwagon because I've made this mistake in the past where even last season, for example, I was very late on Jesse Lingard when he kind of went on that hot streak. And I know underlying numbers are very good, but to me, I kind of on the eye, he was already looking impressive. It was just a shame that my plan was for Game Week 16 when Game Week 15 is when he got a big brace. That's my long-winded reason as to why I made my early move from Rafinha to Bernardo Silva. So I've got the 1 free transfer now left over and 0.7 in the bank. Now, my original plan was always, Game Week 16, this is when we want to target the Manchester United assets. So I did watch the highlights of the Manchester United game, and it seemed like they was kind of struggling to break down the kind of low block that Crystal Palace were playing. But it seemed like Ronaldo was the player who's getting like the majority of the chances, which is probably what you would expect, him playing the furthest forward. He was playing in a 2 alongside Rashford. Truth be told, I haven't watched the full game, so I can't probably properly comment in terms of my eye test, for example, but that's just my early thought, was that it just seems like Ronaldo is still probably the best option for Manchester United. The problem is that it's 12.3 million that you have to pay for him, and it's that argument of if you're not going to captain him, is it worth actually outlaying that much amount of money for him if you're not going to captain him, because that's where the value is with these really premium players. So what I wanted to take a quick look at was just Mo Salah's fixtures, because we know that Salah's on hot form. He's only blanked once this season. And so from what I read, it seems like Liverpool are trying to keep Sadio Mane and Salah until around Game Week 21 before they go in AFCON. So we'll consider up until Game Week 20 is when we might be still holding Salah. Now, if you look at those fixtures, Aston Villa at home, I think playing a home fixture, you're probably always going to back Liverpool because at Anfield they're very, very attacking. Then you've got Newcastle at home. I think you're definitely going to be captaining Mo Salah. Leeds in Game Week 19, I think at home again, you're probably captain. And Leicester have been pretty poor at the back. So I think you probably would still stick with Salah. I think Game Week 18 is the interesting one, away to Spurs, who have looked a little bit better in terms of their defensive numbers, in terms of their just overall play, they look a little bit better. So that might potentially be the week where you maybe don't captain Salah. Thing is though, taking a look at Manchester United fixtures there, you can see in Game Week 18, they're at home to Brighton. Now, we also know that Brighton are a pretty solid defense, so you might just default anyway to Salah. And so that raises the question of, if you're not going to captain Ronaldo through this run, is it worth actually getting him? Now, my answer to that, I think it's probably still worth getting him if you're still able to get in the other players in your team, without it sacrificing too much, if you're trying to fit in Ronaldo as well. I think, say, for example, you're not able to get in like a good combination of your Manchester City midfielders, like a Jared Bowen, Salah, Jota, and Ronaldo, then potentially Ronaldo could be sacrificed, because we're still unsure as well what's the best United asset to go for. Maybe it's someone like Rashford or Sancho. It might not actually be Ronaldo, although he has still delivered to some extent throughout the season so far. You can see there he has already scored 6 goals and has got 2 assists, which is obviously for his price maybe not worth it. I think a lot of people that are probably going to make the switch from Kane to Ronaldo, so I think part of it is also just trying to keep up with the rest of the pack, because if you don't go with him and he does very, very well, then it's a big concern as to how do you actually maybe want to try fit him in later. And the fixtures are still very, very good for United. I mean, that goes without saying. Norwich, Brentford, Brighton, Newcastle, Burnley. Yes, you don't mind not captain him, but there's still very, very good fixtures that, he can definitely get a lot of points in. I guess the other argument is also the fixture congestion. So you can see there, from Sunday the 12th of December for Game Week 16, it's a very, very tight schedule up until the end of December. And so, potentially he might not play every game. He probably will play maybe every 2 out of 3 games in a particular week. I still think, though, that those fixtures are maybe good enough that it is worthwhile getting Ronaldo. So what I'll do is just taking a look at my own team, for example. I've been able to fit in a Manchester City midfielder, which is nice. And if I continue with my original plan, it would probably be bringing in Ronaldo for Harry Kane for Game Week 16. And so with this team now, I've got 0.6 in the bank, and I think the other main targets that I might want to get in midfield is probably Jared Bowen. And so Mbeumo has got Watford at home in Game Week 16, so I still think he's okay to keep for this particular game week. And kind of what I was speaking about earlier in terms of maybe transitioning out of that big at the back, I might potentially then look to drop maybe one of the Chelsea defenders. The thing about Chelsea is that they still have some decent short-term fixtures, but as we get into the kind of medium term, their fixtures do toughen up a little bit, and they are also going into blank game weeks in game week 24 and game week 25. So you can see there that 24 and 25 are blanked out, and prior to that they've got Brighton, Liverpool, Man City and Tottenham. You could even argue that Aston Villa is, you know, pretty decent, and even Wolves, not that bad of a defensive team themselves. So I think Leeds and Everton are still two good fixtures that you can definitely target from, you know, having your Chelsea defenders. I think there potentially is an argument that you could maybe start transitioning away from the double Chelsea defense, and that's something I've been thinking about, taking some money out of that position, and that will then let me, you know, give me the ability to upgrade one of my midfield spots to like your Jared Bowen type. One final word in terms of the Chelsea fixtures, one thing that might happen is that I think they've got a cup game against Brentford. If they lose that cup game, they may actually potentially get a double game week in game week 21. So that's why I'm not immediately looking to take out my Chelsea players. It's going to be something that I think happens around game week 18, which is kind of why I'm looking at that particular game week as a kind of a maybe critical game week as to whether I want to continue with my double Chelsea defenders. So coming back to my current team, so for game week 16, this is how I could look if I go ahead with that planned kind of move of Harry Kane to Ronaldo. I'm going to wait till the end of the week for this particular one because I want to wait for the Champions League and European fixtures to kind of finish, and then we can also get some updated injury news, for example. And so then in game week 17, what I would do is I would probably hold the free transfer because even though Mbeumo's got a tougher fixture, I think against Manchester United, got enough good options in the team that I can field a pretty decent starting 11. And West Ham do also have Arsenal away, so there's no immediate need, I guess, to bring in Jared Bowen in that particular week. Then the week after that, in game week 18, is potentially when I would take out probably Marcus Alonso. I've just got a little bit more value tied up in James, and so I probably would be taking out Alonso. He also hasn't looked the best. And now this is when you could just go for a kind of a cheaper defender, and so I haven't really targeted which particular one I would go for. It's very interesting to know that Dalot from Manchester United, his 4.4 million, he has played the last 2 games under the new manager, and so if he continues to hold his place, with Manchester United's good fixtures, he could be that kind of perfect cheap defender. But for example, we'll just keep in like a 4.5 million price defender, just for example's sake. That frees up around 1.8 million in the bank, and then from there that makes it a very easy upgrade from Mbeumo and probably up to Jared Bowen in game week 18, because that's when West Ham do also play Norwich. And so you can see there, that's how my team would then look in game week 18. You know, I still think it's looking very, very good at the moment. We've got a very, very good squad, and this is as we're getting into a little bit more fixture congestion. So definitely I think there's a lot of good squad depth in there. You know, probably we'll have some tough benching decisions in that time as well, but I think we're starting to get a little bit more of a transition of, you know, West Ham, Manchester City and United players in the kind of the new template. Last thing I quickly wanted to show though is if you don't go with Ronaldo, just the kind of, you know, option that it leaves you to go with. So earlier on in the video, I spoke about having a really kind of packed midfield, and so if you instead take the money out of that position in terms of the forward, because we're not seeing the premium forwards do too well, you know, you could very easily go for kind of a mid-range priced striker like an Ollie Watkins, because from game week 17 he's got pretty decent fixtures. So you can see once we've done that, that frees up around 5.4 million in the bank. This is where you can really start to plug money into your midfield and even still taking money out of your defense if you want. But with this method, you can actually still keep your big at the back defense if you want to keep it that way. So for example, with 5.4 million in the bank, we could do so much. As I mentioned, you could double up on your Manchester City midfielders. So say for example, Phil Foden, I still think is a really, really good buy. So you could get in Foden there for Brownhill if you've kind of got that fifth cheap midfielder. And then with the other extra money, you could upgrade, say if you've got like a Smith Rowe or like a Mbeumo, like I have for example, that's when you could bring in someone like a Jared Bowen. And so there you can see around 0.8 in the bank. But as you see there, it's, you know, we've shifted the money around. It's a very, very strong squad up at this point in time. So this is when you could probably afford to drop Alonso down to a cheaper defender, or otherwise instead of Watkins, you could actually just kill that position and go for like a 4.5 million striker and like a Keenan Davis, just to give yourself less benching dilemmas. And obviously that frees up a lot of money. You'd be freeing up an extra 3 million. So for demonstration purposes, I'll quickly show that as well, just to see what you could do with that. So if say for example, you don't actually go for your third forward, you know, you just want to kill that position because you know that forwards haven't been doing the best. If say you go for a Keenan Davis instead, you've now got 10.2 million in the bank, and so this is where you can even get into someone like Heung-min Son. I know he's a little bit more expensive than that. I think he's around 10.4. He's 10.4 million. So if you've got the team value, you could make that work to actually fit in Son, and then you can see your midfield is looking really, really nice. You're playing basically a 3-5-2 or a 4-5-1 actually, and just rotating Antonio and, you know, your Watford cheaper striker like Josh King or Emmanuel Dennis. So I really like that layout as well. So I think this is just something to consider. You know, I think this week is really critical if you're someone who's owning Kane and you're not 100% sure on getting like a Ronaldo because you're not sure if you're going to captain him. I think the options that it frees up not going with him, midfield, instead of Son, if you wanted to get a Manchester United option, you could still go for someone like a Rashford or a Jadon Sancho, and that frees up an extra 1 million, so you can use that money just to keep in the bank. Or if you want to go rogue, you could even upgrade like your keeper or something like that. So I'll probably end the video there, but I thought this would just be some good food for thought. Let me know in the comments below as well if you've got any kind of major questions for this particular game week. I'm kind of forming this as my hybrid initial thoughts team selection video, and I think in all honesty, I'm probably realistically still going to go for Ronaldo, but I haven't made the decision yet. So I will update that later in the week as well. But maybe I'll do a second video during the week, kind of maybe tackling some hot topics or any questions you might have. If you enjoyed the video, really appreciate a thumbs up, and do please consider subscribing to the channel if you do enjoy the content. But I'll see you all in the next video.